Okay, so this is Captain's Log, August 18th, 2026. I am heading back home from work, and I'm here doing this. And hopefully, this is the third time, and I'll be better the last time than I was the first two times. So, I am doing this log. This is a video journal. This is a video dialogue, specifically not with myself, not to myself, but about myself, to be accountable about my own activities and to myself at some point in time in the future, and to get my thoughts on in a very specific way. Now, as much as this is about me, right? And I put this on YouTube. So why would I put this on YouTube in order to be um, all about me and all about my story, right? Do people need to hear all of my story? No. Do people need to know all my story? No. Do people need all my opinions? No, they probably don't, right? They actually take that back. They don't need my opinion for sure. However, the reason why I put this in a public spot for somebody to come and look at is because I believe maybe in you know, the small chance that possibly, if it could be of use to someone to learn from, experiences or just learn and take stuff in, if it could be possible for somebody to learn from me in a positive light, what not to do, what to do, right? That's good. Those are good things. And so if I could just be, able to help somebody out, maybe that they stumble across the video by accident, that's fine. But it's not fame, it's not followers, it's not subscribers, it's nothing like that. And it was, that's just how I feel. So I just want to make that note. So just, so this is all real. This isn't fake. Um, that said, I had a couple thoughts this morning, all right? And I'm going to put this in my written journal that I write down. And I'm also just put in a visible one. I'm trying to, this stuff helps me to get out of my own head, and it just helps me to process. So number one, therapy, okay? Friends and therapy, all right? Listen, I think the biggest reason why in Western culture that we as people need so many therapists, and therapists are like, there's not enough therapists for everybody in the Western world, and everybody pays for it like every week. You wanna know why? Because we don't have friends. And I think the people that our idea and understanding of friendship is seriously diminished into something that is seriously narcissistic. And it's all about a person gaining the most out of somebody else and getting use out of them, right? That's what it is. Okay? So, I realized that, we would have less therapists if we had better friends. And I understand, like, I'm a person, like, I want good relationships. I don't want bad relationships, and I know you can't just dump on your friends all this stuff, but in the end of the day, when you find friends, you end up sharing some of the things in your life with them, the good and the bad and the ugly, and that ends up in a form of therapy, more or less, right? At least in a positive way. So, hopefully I can be a really good friend to somebody in that way, right? And be better and, be valued as a friend, to be honest with you. Better than I had been, and that's a lot more self reflection that I really want to go into at this time. But I do always want to be a better friend. If I could be like Samwise Gamgee, a friend like Samwise Gamgee, I'll be okay at some point. So, that being said, the other part of this is I've gone through really specific things, right, in my life, and talking about getting friends, but I've lost a lot of friends. I've had to let go of so many friends. I've had relationships with friends just dissipate and they disappear, or they just go sour, or I realize the other person needs me in their life in such a way to where I'm a backup plan, or the person that was there, they weren't really my friend in the first place, or they were using me for something that, to be honest, wasn't there, or they were malicious in the way that they would help me to begin with. All that to be said is just to say, I have been through a certain amount of what people might call trauma, but I'm not going to hide behind that and say that's the reason why I can do every stupid thing in the world, or that's the reason that can justify me describing things that happened to me previously in my life when I interact with new people, when I interact with people that I've known before, right? Sometimes I get really excited, and I just really want them to understand, right? I don't want to overwhelm them, but I realize as an entire person, I overwhelm people sometimes. And it's frustrating. I wish I didn't do that. I think there's a use for that. And I also think that there's a balance and self-control involved with that. Again, deeper things that, in light of everything, you live and you learn and you go forward. But for 3 years after I graduated high school, I was a part of a cult. And I did not know I was a part of a cult. And they sounded Christian, they looked Christian, they did Christian ministry, we prayed for people, they were sincere, they always did these things, they had whatever, but it was a cult. And the experience I had in there, while God was good to me in the fact that he used that experience just with good things and bad things, despite the unbiblical and the cult-like nature of what was going on, and the anti-church thing that they were all a part of, right? Despite all that, so that's what I've been through, and that happened from 18 to like 22 or 21, and let me tell you something, man. I'm almost 36 now, and I have spent that much time literally just processing everything that happened in that 3-year window. And it's been a lot, like my relationships were controlled, like with the opposite sex, with women, right? Like I was trashed in a ministry way. I was treated in a really inappropriate way. Like, not that anybody touched me in the wrong way, but like I was treated in a way to where, like, stack a chair, be quiet, don't say nothing, don't, that's it, just stack a chair. I was like, okay, cool, I'll stack chairs. But all the things that we were promised to take part in, we weren't really allowed to do. For a reason I really don't know. And I wasn't being submissive to these call rules, but some of them were stupid. Like, they wanted to control all my relationships. They wanted to do all these different things. It's so dumb. Like, listen, at the end of the day, like, I'm only sharing this to say, like, there's a whole lot about this in my captain's log that I'm going to share with myself and with other people and anybody else willing to come in and to listen. Now, pause. That doesn't mean that is everything. But that means that the experience is something that I'm still working through. And I know I can, put it all in and it just takes time to process it. So some things may come out repetitive, right? But there's a lot that I experienced. Like, I'm telling you, like, the first girl I really fell in love with, honestly, really fell in love with, that I really loved, she was kept from me. Honestly, really, truly kept from me in a general conspiracy. Not paranoid, not like overly paranoid about something that didn't happen, but she was generally kept from me by the program, by the cult itself. The cult itself was called a Master's Commission, okay? The cult itself was run by this guy named Brian Sylvia. He's a pastor. He lives, quote-unquote, pastor. He lives down in Florida, right? He did a Master's Commission, started in the Eastern Shore of Maryland, went all the way to Hagerstown for like 5 or 6 or 7, 8 years, 9 years. Then he went down to Louisiana for a couple years. Then he went over to, Mobile, Alabama, and that's where I was at. I was in Hagerstown, Louisiana, and Alabama, my only 3 years in that program, and we bounced around like it was nothing, like God was schizophrenic. It didn't know what he was doing. So all that just to say, man, like I can look back at that and say, God preserved me in certain ways, and God can be good to me through all this stuff, yes. However, there's just a lot of stuff there. I hung out with somebody this past Friday or Saturday, and I caught up with them, and they did not have that, they couldn't share that experience, but there are a lot of people that went through that cult / thing, and they understand the experience. And they, my relationships were controlled. I was kept from someone that I wanted to get to know, someone that I genuinely and purely loved in a way that, the best way that I knew how and the best way that I could. It was questioned at every turn. I just met this girl. I just thought, wow, that girl's my age. Wow, that girl's really pretty. Oh, okay. And then while I'm talking to her, get to know her in public, just naturally, right? Taking natural steps, just go and have a conversation with somebody, with her. First question ever asked me was, well, do you love her? And then any other opportunity to talk to any other woman to look for a wife as a Christian man. It was always just cut out for my legs. I couldn't do it. I couldn't have conversations with them. And I remember those things. Those things are scars on my heart and my mind and my life. Right? I'm 36 and I'm single. What could have been always pops up into the brain, into the mind. What I lost is tremendous. It's painful. The opportunities that were lost, not only forfeited because of me, but forfeited because of the actions of other people that I wasn't responsible for. I feel guilty. Well, could I have done more all the time? I feel guilty like, man, I wish I could have mended things. I wish I could make things better, but I just can't, right? So that's the cult experience that I had there. I wouldn't say it made my life with Christ better. I think it made it more confusing. And that's even if I would have done the rules or whatever else they had there, which I did the best of my ability to do, right? But that wasn't even taken in. So anyway, I just say all that just to say, I'm saying, I'm responsible for the choices I made in my life. And the cult stuff, it's there, it's happened, it's something that I'm working through. It's going to come out in these conversations. It's going to come out in these things, these video journals, this captain's log that I'm doing for myself, and that sounds selfish and narcissistic. Why are you talking to yourself? I don't know. I just know that I want to make a log of what my experience is for myself so I can see, I guess, and it's a good opportunity to do it. But at the end of the day, I think about that experience and all I lost. I've written songs about what I had and what I lost, or what what I could have had, right? I don't think, I couldn't even have a conversation with a girl. I couldn't even ride with a girl around a circle in on a four-wheeler in a public area, and she invited me on the four-wheeler. I couldn't even ask a girl to go to a movie. The girl that I really wanted to ask to go to a movie, I couldn't go pursue her because behind closed doors I was being trashed. Every bad thing that I ever done, instead of you happen around other people, these people trash me. They're like, oh, here are his flaws. He sucks. He's terrible. Don't do it. I guarantee you, without big vernacular, that's what happened. And that's why the person wanted nothing to do with me, right? Oh, he's not well put together. He's just trash. He's hot doo-doo water. And again, I also believe your game film is your game film. Okay, touche, right? But you don't ever meet anybody in a perfect place in a perfect position. Never. Never happens. Even people that are well put together later in life, they still got flaws. So even then, when I was 20, 21, okay, cool. Yeah, I had flaws, but I could change, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that for them to change me, but I know I would have taken care of what I needed to take care of to get done what he needed to get done, which I really do feel the call that God's called me to marriage. So all that being said, I'm just pointing out here, like, I had a relationship that was controlled. That really bothered me. I couldn't find a way to pursue a wife because I was, just really a horrible person of character. And then even after I left the program, the head of the program, Pastor Brian Sivia, JP Marker, a bunch of other people would get in the room and start running their mouth about me, start talking about me, start saying things about me, right? They would never call me. They would never talk to me about it. Anthony Hooks would do the same thing. And some of these people I'm talking about, I've already had conversations with them, and they didn't want to make it right with me, right? I'm not dusting them out and putting their name out there, dirtying them up, but it just is what it is, right? I try to make the best peace I could with them. They don't want to make peace with me, right? And then I just had to be like, all right, cool. That's how y'all want it. That's how y'all want it. So I'm just gonna say things as they were and as what they are. But I tried. I tried making things right. I really did. And I tried doing things the right way. And then even after I got out of the program, I tried making a friendship connection with a girl that I really loved and I really cared about. And I was doing things naturally to protect myself from relationships, with false relationships, I guess, or relationships that matter less. So, how do I say this? There was a lot of learning and living that I did there. And then I remember I was in the Army, and this is long after, and I reached out to this same girl, and I hadn't talked to her in a while, and I thought about her all the time during basic training. And you know what? It started off okay. And then I found out, like in the past year, that she went to go talk to this guy, Brian Sylvia. And Brian Sylvia was like, talked crap about me before. He talked crap about me again. And then the personal private video that I made to her, which wasn't like a really explicit nothing. It just was a basic, hey, how you doing? We didn't have FaceTime like we do these days. So it was like a video like this, but I sent it to her and I was like, hey, miss you, haven't talked to you in a while. She goes to take it to Pastor Brian, Sylvia, and company. And they just hate my guts and they're just talking all this crap about me. And, you know what I'm saying? It just, and then she was all the good thing that when she started to respond to me, she's like, what do I do here, right? I mean, then suddenly I start getting questions, why did you make a video? Why did you put it on YouTube? Why did you... First of all, the video was link only, so it was just her. And I knew she was sharing it with other people because the video views went from like 8 to like 36 or 39 or like 40. It just kept going up, And so Pastor Brian killed my opportunity to get with that girl long after I get out of there, man. So I hope one day he has to suffer the consequences of just being a butthole, because I know historically Pastor Brian Sylvia did that to a lot of people. He did it to Mikey Braca. He did it to anyone coming into his program. Any young student who came into his program, you couldn't naturally have a boyfriend or girlfriend that you wanted to marry because you had to focus on his program. You had to cut ties with anything behind you because that was the way of discipleship. You couldn't have any positive connections. You couldn't even talk to a woman if you're a male. Oh, because you can't flirt. But his friends and his favorites flirted all the time. All that I'm trying to say is my story and my history went like that right there. That was a big part of my life. That was a big part of my heart. And it was cut right out of me. And, the whole time, I remember, I could tell more about this later, but he came up to me at the end of the last year that I was there, and I was trying to stick around for another year, and I wanted to stay in Mobile, Alabama, after I graduated. I would come back shortly after to Mobile, and he was like, well, he basically said, you need to leave. I was the only person there that he got behind closed doors and said I needed to leave. Now, looking back on that, I really would have looked at him and been like, hey, no, not leaving, buddy. Like, you're not threatening me to leave here. Pastor Brian broke so many, labor laws, it's ridiculous. We can start about that. You know what I'm saying? This is pretty freaking dumb. But anyways, at the end of the day, that's what happened to me. I was used, I was abused in a spiritual form. by a pastor who was running a cult, and he controlled my relationships. Why did I let him do it? I don't know. Because I trusted him. People that abuse stuff like that, you trust them and stuff, and they just take it to the wrong level. So that being said, I bear the scars of that. I bear the consequences of my choices to put myself in that position in the first place. Right? But the Lord is not unable to use even those pathways in order to help me grow closer to who He really is. I'm just saying that overall, like, that hurt, man. Like, I miss things during that moment because other people came in and they didn't think I was worthy of them. They didn't think I was, they just didn't think I was worthy. They didn't think I was worthy of that girl's attention. That girl's really pretty. She still really is. She's gorgeous to this day, but I mean, I'm pretty sure I actually saw a picture of this girl. This is kind of embarrassing to say out loud, but I saw a picture of this girl, and it was like during Lent. And I just bawled my eyes out. And it's just the Lord was just healing me during that moment in time, but I just bawled my eyes out. It's how pretty she was, man, and she was everything that I thought she was when I saw her, but everything that I did wasn't good enough. Everything that I ended up wanting to build and build relationship-wise with other people, it wasn't good enough, right? It just wasn't good enough. It wasn't satisfactory enough. So it's kind of embarrassing to admit that's what happened to me, that I let some of that stuff happen to me, which is the tossing and the turning back. But it's not tossing and turning back from waves and from one thing to another, from one belief to another. It's just the reality of what happened. And I guess I bring that up to say, like, they took that away from me and they kept me from that, which they, meaning Pastor Brian and them, in a formal or informal type of conspiracy to say that they would charge me. And this, I found this out by having different conversations with different people in different times and putting the pieces together like a puzzle and saying, okay, well, like one guy, Anthony Hook, said to me when I directly asked him what happened, he said, well, we know the only reason why you went around that girl and her family is because you liked her. Okay, first of all, no. So that was the assumption. And they said and then Anthony was also said, well, we always agree. Everybody knew that. Everybody knew that's why you went around there. And that's just not true. Get I mean? And I'm not being disingenuous about that. Like, I'm an idiot sometimes, but I'm not going to lie to you about that. Or lie to myself about that. Like, there were some girls that I did go around because I did like them. Right? Like, before that, there was this girl named Gabrielle Williams. I intentionally went around her because I liked her. I intentionally put myself in her groups and area because I did like her. Right? I didn't do that with this girl. I just didn't. I literally love football, love college football, so put myself around a bunch of people that like college football. And it just so happened to be her dad and her brothers, right? And, and we watched college football. We talked football. We watched NFL. We talked all the time. That's what we did. So, and then so happened that she had to be around in some way, shape, or form because it's her family. And I never gave her the attention for that. Specifically, I never went over to her and really spent time and talked to her during those moments. I really didn't. I legitimately spent time with the family at playing football, liking the football, all the other stuff, and getting to know people and building a relationship with the pastor that was positive, right? Building a networking connection with the pastor that was a good relationship. And then I remember even later, Pastor Brian not only accused me of being there for the wrong reasons, right? Loving her at first sight, which that's not really how that worked. But He also accused me of building a relationship in the church just to seek power. And the funny thing is, the things I was charged with, I wasn't doing. I wasn't overtly doing something with the aim of seeking to gain power or seeking to gain influence. I just was building relationships with the people that were building them with me. That is what I was doing. And that was really innocent. That was not, explicitly, I'm trying to get somewhere, I'm going to be somebody. I did want to be somebody for sure, but anyway, so everything was kind of butchered and taken because they said, well, Josh, who's this guy, Josh? Who's he? He's not worthy of this stuff. Look at this idiot. This clown. And so Pastor Brian, instead of allowing me to do any of that stuff, I also remember very specifically, I remember talking about ministry stuff that I wasn't allowed to do. The one that I can point out chiefly among them, was I was never allowed to truly help out in the church with anything. I joined the worship team, and I made the worship team as a singer, or as one of the singers. And told Pastor Brian it happened, and Pastor Brian looked at me and he was like, "Well, why didn't you ask me?" Now, 5 minutes later, his BFFs, Curtis Tasker. Y'all can take your time to Google these names. I'm not making any of this stuff up. Curtis Tasker and Davey Nelson, right? Two other of his BFFs. They were playing drums and they were singing and they were up there doing stuff, right? So, but I wasn't allowed to do anything. Mind you, this is the third year I was with this person and then their quote unquote ministry or their cult, whatever, man. So anyway, long story short, I've forgiven these people. But holding them accountable and expressing the story of what happened is a part of getting through, So that's another reason why I'm kind of sharing kind of some of this stuff with myself, with the world, and with whoever really wants to hear about it. God's good. So God's been healing me and getting me through, and it's been a long process to get back to that. But I'm just saying, people took that away from me. Pastor Brian, JP, all these different people, they said I wasn't worthy of it. And they would take it away from me. And Pastor Brian made plenty of situations available, or took plenty of opportunities available for me to go and have conversations with a girl that I actually liked, and actually really liked and really cared about. I really wanted to get to know from a place of purity, right? Took a chance. But anyway, and he put his best friend in there. He put Davey Nelson in there, slotted him in there. He said, "Hey, why don't you guys just hang out together?" And he kicked me out of there to, he did it covertly. So he wasn't like you saw that like straight up. So where he could play like dumb and he was like, "What? See, it's just what happens. It's just what happens. It's just what happens. Just what happens." That's how he would perceive it and say it. So you can't blame me for how things turn out. Well, yeah, I can, because his hands were all over it. And it's gonna sound like weird, like, Josh, what are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about like even after this stuff happened. I'll say a little bit more and I'll get out of here. This has been a lot lengthier than what I thought it would be, but I guess I need to get this out. Because I got this out in writing, but I guess I need to get this out loud to the world, to myself, to a certain extent. Because I feel like it's been kept down for so long. I was really, truly a friend to her brothers, and a friend to her family, and a friend to her family members. I didn't want to say her last name because that's the one thing I'm not gonna go out of my way to like say. It's not even worth it. But I'm still friends with her brother to this day. Still friends with her brothers to this day. I still care about her brothers. Still care about her dad to this day. Like, they were good people. Her mom to this day. Like, they were good people to me. Like, I was missing my family. I was far away from home. They were good to me, man. They were so good to me, and I was so grateful. They felt like family, and that's why I wanted to spend time with her brothers and her dad. It wasn't about trying to recreate something or trying to force something, you know what I mean? It was never about that. But I felt like I was at home, away from home, and that's why I kept coming back and hanging out with the brothers and so much time. And I remember one time, and this is a story I will share, it was not the girl that I really liked. It was the girl that, in my mind, in my logic, I just trying to make it up so I could just get out of there and find someone else to like. But this is before, whatever, I was 21. The girl I liked was like 18. Her cousin was like 17-ish. And I remember it was after church one night. I think I would always go out with some of the young guys. We would all go to like Taco Bell or Subway or something and get something to eat. And so one of the things that ended up happening was, I remember it was her, the girl that I liked. It was her cousin, or two of her cousins. And it was this dude that I had met at one of these big parties that they had, like for July 4th or some big holiday at their house. And his name was Eric Hebner. I mean, I'm, probably just diming that man out. I really don't care, but whatever. His name was Eric Hebner. He was approximately like maybe a year younger than me, or probably about the same age. Anyways, long story short, he ended up telling me he was just acting weird around around the girl Hannah. Damn, I said her name out loud. Not the girl I like, but that was the girl, like the cousin of the girl that I like. Anyway, I'm saying her name out there. And, but Eric was like, he was just acting weird around this girl Hannah and her cousins and the girl that I liked. So I was like, okay, well, it's kind of like making me feel weird. And I was like, all right, well, let me have a conversation with you. So immediately when I sensed something was off, I was like, hey man, let's go outside for a second. Let me talk to you for a minute. So we both went outside, we had a conversation. And then shortly after, he's like, yeah, well, hey, I was like, well, what's going on with you and what's her face in there, whatever, you and Hannah. He's like, oh, well, I feel like the Lord told me that she's going to be my wife. Now, to hear me out, I'm all about somebody really hearing from the Lord, and I do believe God can talk like that. I do. But in that moment, I was kind of just more practical. I was like, she's not even 18 yet. So in her defense in that moment, and after that moment, I looked at Eric and I said, Eric, I don't think that was the Lord. Now pause. I had been in that. I could tell the other story later, man. Anyway, but it wasn't the case. So the girl was underage. God's not going to tell you that you can marry a woman that's underage before you can marry them. Right? I remember I can go many places with this, but that's what it is. So the girl that I liked, and her cousin Hannah probably looked at me like I was weird when I asked this dude to go outside to have a conversation. But little do they know, even to this day, that like me taking part to somehow intervene, even from a bystander, because I cared about Hannah, I cared about this girl that I liked, I cared about all of her family. I cared about protecting them, and that's what I did. And I didn't get any golden stars for it, right? So I didn't ask for them. I didn't put it out there to say, oh yeah, well, and I know I'm putting it out here now, but it's years later, man. You know what I'm saying? That girl Hannah's up and married and she has kids or whatever. Good for her, you know what I'm saying? But like the way God moved in her life, you know what I'm saying? God wouldn't have moved in her life the way he did and has. You know what I'm saying? If that If I want to got that dude off for drugs, because God only knows what. Anyways, but the point I'm trying to say is, I cared about that girl that I liked. I really cared. I really adored that person. And it was real. And I treated it responsibly. And to have Pastor Brian and all these other people, Davey and JP, come up to me and treat me like I was unworthy to go and to pursue these things in an equal fashion, that they're allowing Davey to go and pursue them, which he did, and to thwart all access and just every opportunity, which again, I will say this too, Pastor Brian specifically, throughout my time in Master's Commission, always made fun of me and dogged me in front of women my age, in my age bracket, in my age group. And he'd always be like, oh, I love you, but he would just like chastise me and make fun of me in a really negative way. I think, to me, I know I can make fun of some people, but I really try to do it in positive ways, right? Giving people a good nickname, or giving people a positive attribute, right? Or something like that. I don't try to knock them down and make them feel less or make them look like less in front of other people. That's a really big deal to me. Because again, Pastor Brian would make me look dumb in front of every woman ever. Everyone ever come across him. He just loved making fun of me in front of young women, and it was stupid. And he had a wife and he had a kid. It was just dumb, man. And I'm not making this up, So, I remember this, man. I remember this. These things sting. These things hurt. I've forgiven Pastor Brian, but the forgiveness doesn't take away the memory. The forgiveness doesn't take away the reality that they happened. The forgiveness doesn't make the scar go away. Right? It doesn't make it hurt any less. But yeah, I'm just saying he wouldn't let me. He wouldn't let me even have a real conversation with her. And again, I don't know what happened behind closed doors aside from me, but if someone's telling you all these bad things about somebody, you're going to believe it for the most part, right? And I guess she was really gullible, and there was another part of me that was trying to keep her from the direction and the influence of Pastor Brian, but it was like that was all in vain, because she never listened to me. And then I remember one time she would actually come up to me. I can't say her name, man. I really don't want to. But she would come up to me and she'd be like, hey, is everything okay? Now, mind you, I'm kind of in my prime, 21 years old. She's about 18. She's in college. Asking me what's really going on. And it was her. It was her, man. And I couldn't even talk to her in public without being judged like I committed sexual immorality. I couldn't talk to her in public, and it wasn't because I had issues or anything else. It's not ungodly for you to go and to pursue a wife. There's nothing ungodly about that. I don't care when any pastor wants anybody tell anybody. There's nothing wrong with that. You going to pursue a wife, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, there's nothing. But apparently for him, there was something wrong with me wanting to pursue a wife outside of his jurisdiction, which is none of his freaking business, right? And if I was audacious enough and understood kind of where things would go better than I did then, I probably would have said some things. I probably would have been chirping. I probably would have been saying some stuff. A whole lot more than what I did and do. Because I probably could have said more. But I know this girl would come up to me and she would say, hey, what's wrong? What's going on? And I couldn't tell her. I think I'll close with this, man. So I had to let go. And Pastor Brian sabotaged that over and over and over again. Me being connected with that girl, me trying to reconnect with that girl, any type of influence, any type of trusting my person, my character. Pastor Brian never gave me a stamp of approval. He treated me like absolute dog crap, dude. And I'm ashamed to ever have dealt with this man, because I definitely didn't treat him like that. I don't understand where that treatment came from. And he can probably come up with some super spiritual reasons why he should have did it, or blah, blah, blah. But there's no super spiritual reason to back it up. Don't care. Because I remember months later, and again, this is my experience. So people can say whatever they want to say, but this actually happened. This is around the period of time where Adele had, the same year Adele had the CD 21, and I just purchased it. And my mom just bought a car. I was living in the Carolinas at the time. And we're driving back. My mom's quietly doing stuff. This is months after this, and she starts dating Davey Nelson. And right before she starts dating Davey Nelson gives me a weird phone call and says, "Oh, I'm going to date this girl." Now pause, I got through all my other stuff, and I muster up the courage, because I talked to my grandfather, to call this girl Autumn and tell her, I just said her name. To call this girl and tell her that I really like her. Okay? And that the whole time I didn't know. And that was the truth. I didn't make that up. And that I had unintentionally lied. And I really liked her. And I found that out because I prayed. I said, "God, what's going on?" And the Lord kind of really showed me, this is where your heart's at right now. I said, okay. So I told her, because my grandfather said, if you feel like you can't live without her, let her know. So I told this girl that I liked her. And then she was like, well, She's like, well, you live there? I was like, well, I'm trying to figure that out. And then, yeah. She ended up saying, well, it's just, you just can't do that. She was really frustrated. She seemed really, really frustrated that it caught her by surprise, I guess, to be really honest with you. It caught her by surprise. I don't think she really anticipated it, honestly. I think it came out of left field. And then, but at the same time, she was like, well, I knew it. And then I said, so you knew the whole time, you knew I liked you, right? She's like, yeah. I was like, so why didn't you tell me that? I don't remember what she said, but it culminated in that conversation. The first part when I told her that was just her saying, well, I like you, but... Sorry, she didn't say I like you. I'm going to take that back. The girl I liked didn't say that I liked her, but what she ended up saying was this statement of, well, you can't do that to people, change your mind about stuff and come back. I don't know, dude. I guess in whatever way, shape, or form, she was like, well, I never should have communicated. Well, I never felt that way about you and all this different stuff. And I just asked her an honest question because I was there. I had the experience too. And I wasn't delusional. And I said, okay, so tell me this, girl that I like. Tell me, did you ever flirt with me? Yes or no? She said, oh no, I never flirted with you. At that point, because I knew she was unwilling to admit she ever flirted with me, I was like, I'm just going to be done with this conversation. Hung up the phone, and I buried all my feelings for her. Now move forward, maybe 5-6 months later, I'm burying myself in lust. I'm burying myself in insecurities. And as a Christian, it's stupid to say that out loud, but I was burying myself in lust and insecurities to forget this girl because I had to bury all my feelings alive like they didn't exist. That I had for this girl because I really had deep affections for her. And I remember I put this Adele CD in. My mom just bought a car. I was driving the car back while I'm sleeping in the passenger seat. And I looked at her and just was thinking, and then I hit the song, Someone Like You. Now again, this actually happened. This actually happened in my experience in real time And I'm not making this up, and it's going to sound like it came from a dang old movie, but it wasn't from a movie. It actually happened. And this is kind of how God worked. And this is exactly how it happened. I'm telling you exactly how it happened. So I'm listening to this song, Someone Like You. And I hadn't thought about this girl intentionally in many months. I buried it down deep. And suddenly, as the song starts to play in the first part of it, I heard that you settled down, that you down and down. As the song starts to go, I start to just, thoughts of her start to trickle in my mind like a faucet that's turned on. And I remember it. I was like, I really, really enjoyed her. Like, I enjoyed everything about her. She was so cool. She was funny. She was kind. Man, she was amazing. Man. I started to think about her, and surely there, God, I really felt like what came from the Lord God and came from Jesus was, or the Holy Spirit was, this very specific thing. And I thought about her, and then it says, never mind, I will find someone like you. Oh, I wish nothing but the best for you too. Don't forget me, I pray. So I got to that part, and I felt like the Lord was like, Joshua, I know that you loved her. I know you loved her. And those words made my entire being just begin pouring out with tears, man. Tears. Because all the time I'd fought for what I felt and knew in my heart, my mind, and my soul to be validated on the exterior, and I was told by a bunch of other people that it wasn't in existence, that it didn't exist, that it was impossible, that it wasn't real. And for the Lord to come to me in that moment through the Holy Spirit to comfort me and say, Josh, I know you loved her. I know you did. Man, that just didn't make everything right, but it made me feel, it comforted me in that moment. It comforted me so much, because I not only was sabotaged, I had to walk away from it. I couldn't go back. And I was going to be sabotaged in the future, and I didn't know that either in that moment. Now, literally, pause. In this time, she's still dating that guy, Davey Nelson, who called me really strangely and told me he was dating this girl. Right? He's like, oh, I'm dating so-and-so. I'm dating this girl you like. And I was like, well, congrats, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. The best man won, whatever, man. I was humble, really was about it. I was like, whatever. So let it go. So literally, now pause. In the same night that this happened, less than 2 hours later, I get home. I get on the computer, right? I hop on the computer. I get on Facebook, because at that time, you just get on Facebook, you scroll, and you talk to people. So I got on Facebook, and I went to the Facebook messages, and I was messaging somebody. Then out of the blue, this girl that I had been thinking about and I had talked about it 6 or 7 months messaged me. I didn't provoke it. I didn't do anything about that. I didn't provoke it. She messaged me. And I was so scared. Now, mind you, I just been through this thing emotionally, and she messaged me, and I was like, Lord, what am I doing? Like, I'm terrified. Like, dang, what a thing. So the same day that thing happened over the song, Someone Like You, she messages me like a couple hours later, and I get home. I'm like, I didn't even set this up. This is crazy. So I get back, and then she talked to me. She's like, hey, well, what do you, she's like, hey, how you been? And I was really nervous. I was nervous because I realized that she meant everything to me, and how was I supposed to let her know this in messaging? What words could I possibly have said to her in that moment to get her to grasp and understand that wouldn't terrify her, right? I don't know, man. So long story short, I just said, hey, I'm nervous, whatever. And then it got down to it, and I was like, yeah, God's been really messing me up to like Adele songs lately, apparently. And the next thing you know, or just kind of really talking to me through Adele songs. So I was like, okay, cool. And then she's like, well, what song? And then I was like, Someone Like You, the song. Okay. And she asked me specifically what it was about. And in that moment, I was faced with a choice. The choice was, do I tell her that God told me that I loved her? Do I tell her I love her? You know? Do I just outright tell her? There was part of me that was like, what the hell is this going to solve, man? So I responded specifically as saying, I don't have the courage to share it with you right now. And I think what I resigned myself toward is, if the Lord can tell me that I loved her and convince me of that, if it's the Lord can convince her in her own feelings that she loves me, right? So I told her just specifically, hey, I don't have the courage to share this with you right now. There you go. And then her next statement was, when am I going to see you again? So I went to go see her, and then I know in person, I saw her like a few times after that, I guess, 1 or 2 times after that, and I treated her cold, man. I didn't know what to do. I saw her in person, but she's dating Davey Nelson, and he was supposed to be like this mentor / person that was kind of a leader, but he ended up being kind of cowardly and, sniveling and butt sniffing, basically. I'm accountable for that relationship too, but anyway, he would probably argue that if he heard that. And so at the end of the day, I just remember, man, this is a lot longer than what I wanted it to be, but at the end of the day, that was the moment and opportunity that I had available to me to say something, to make a move, I guess. But I resigned from sharing the information of I love you because I hadn't talked to her in months, and I don't know how the hell that would have came over. But if I had my son in front of me, I would tell him, son, the Lord just spoke to you about you loving somebody and called you out on it. Tell the girl that you love her. Who cares about the results, man? Who cares? I don't even care if they give you a restraining order after that. Just say it, man. So long story short, I said it to that person, and that I told him that I didn't have the courage to share it with them. They never asked me about that again. I guess it wasn't that significant to them, and they never got to that place to where they asked themselves those questions or dealt with that. But I ended up treating that person kind of coldly in person. I remember coming through and like saying goodbye to her brother and her cousin Hannah, but I didn't say goodbye to her on purpose. We're in the middle of church, and I had to leave and get a bus and go to get a ride home. So I'm sure she took that the wrong way. But the reason why I couldn't do that is because she was really beautiful and she was really pretty. And I couldn't stand her knowing that I cared about her like that, man. How do you... A girl that literally melts your entire heart, mind, and soul. How the hell are you supposed to let her know, man? and say goodbye and not want her. You know what I mean? And that's what I felt like all the time when I was around her. I just felt like I wanted her, and I wanted to love her for real. And I would do anything. I would climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I would climb the Himalayas. I would climb Mount Everest. I would die up there, man. I would live up there. I would do whatever it took, man. That's the pureness of what I felt and what I was hoping for, right? And anyway, but that's the turmoil, and I ended up writing a song about that. I think I can maybe explain this one more time full out if I need to, but that's what happened to me in the cult. There's more stories about the cult that I can tell here in this time stuff, but it's just to say, I've been through some stuff. So maybe this will bless somebody. Maybe this is just about me making a journal for myself, talking about myself and my life. So at the end of my life, people can look at it and say, hey, here's this cool stuff here. Or maybe in the interwebs, someday someone can get some inspiration from this story. All that to say, those people kept me from that. It was beautiful, it was pure, it was good, and Pastor Brian, JP, and all them kept me from that. They absolutely did. And I hold them responsible, even though I forgave them. I hold them responsible. And I've moved on with my life, and I'm here, and I'm in a different spot, and, talk to other women, right? I'm saying go, and, obviously. But it is what it is, man. All right. That's it, y'all. I got to go. Peace.